So I recently just watched Vampires usually aren't something that interests me very much at all, but goddamn does Hellsing actually make the Bloodsuckers badass and cool as can be. Sure, this original 13 episode adaptation of the manga is far from perfect, or as loyal as Ultimate would be, but for the time, it's an awesome bit of cheap, low-budget fun. Following a young police officer turned vampire by the name of Ceres Victoria, we watch as she is brought into a secret organization of vampire hunters and occult battlers known as the Hellsing Organization. Guided by an ancient and sinisterly suave vampire by the name of Alucard, the pair do battle with the evils that haunt England during the night, all while they do their best to track down and stop a shadowy organization that plots the destruction of all by using the bastard forces of the dark. While the main plot was fairly darn enjoyable, the major problems with the story were things like the overly brisk pace that clashes with the often repeated exposition, and the fact that many questions and plot points go completely unanswered and unresolved. Seriously, the show basically ends on a huge cliffhanger with a few text cards and a single scene to wrap it up, and that's it. That's all you get. Ceres was an incredibly likable and cute main character, being torn between her humanity and vampire sides. Alucard was badass incarnate and was just plain cool. Walter filled the role of the badass butler darn well, and while she was a bit too serious for most of the show, I really did like Integra. Not to forget, the rest of the side cast on the side of good were all very enjoyable as well. On the antagonist side of things, you had the maniacal paladin Father Anderson, who was an enjoyable bit of psychotic rivalry to Alucard. The Valentine brothers were a fun bit of one-off villainy and carnage. Sadly, however, the true villain of the piece, Incognito, was just a dull, boring affair of overplayed ultimate bad guy evil tropes that never brought anything interesting to the table. Action-wise, the show can be quite fun. There's plenty of enjoyable showdowns, and a lot of the show felt like a video game, with easy and swift grunt fights and big bombastic boss battles. While the show wasn't extremely gory or bloody, a lot of it being censored to look like dust or just be white, there was enough brutality to keep the action heavy and intense. In terms of the animation, the show is extremely charming, but quite cheap. There's some really inspired scenes, detailed shots, and fun sequences, but oftentimes the show feels as though it's barely animated, simply having characters stand still and do nothing while they talked. The colors, designs, and everything were all really nice. There was just a sense that they didn't have the budget that they needed. I have to say, I loved the soundtrack. Every song was great, from the catchy theme song to Alucard's theme to the creeping and upbeat tracks. Everything was just really fun to listen to. While I do think people calling this and Ultimate's dubs the best dubs ever made is sort of silly, I did grow to like the dub as I watched the show. Sure, it's a bit awkward and stilted in some places and fairly cheesy overall, but it's clear there was a lot of passion put in from the VAs. There are some really fun line reads,
Eat Harkonnen, bitch.
and decent performances.
How about a duel to the death, oh Judas Priest?
It's about time, vampire.
And while I don't think it's the best ever like some people on the internet say, it's enjoyable enough and far from bad. The sound effects and everything else also sounded nice. It was a good sounding anime, just the dub is pretty silly in a lot of places. And with all that said, Hellsing 2001 isn't perfect by any means, and it has plenty of problems in most departments. But regardless of its shortcomings, the show is still a really fun romp, with a likable, memorable cast, a decent story overall even if it never gets resolved, and plenty of action and good tunes. While it's not on the level of Ultimate, I could still recommend you check this audio out for a fun evening watch. As always, thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider sharing with your friends and subscribing to the channel to see more. I want to give a huge thank you to not only the show's patrons, but also Orion Knight for doing up the art and rig of Punish Neat, Alexander for doing the show's intro theme, and my friend Alex for making the thumbnail design. Their social media and my Patreon will be linked in the description down below. If you have any comments, questions, or recommendations, leave them down below as I read and reply to everything. Until next time, this is Sarah Williamson signing off until the next video. See you guys!